the funny thing is the difference musically between David and I've obviously gotten introduced to a lot of his music that he liked, but at heart, I'm still a pop girl and I love pop music even to this day. I could listen to that all the time. So even what kids are listening to, I never grew out of that. I will listen to it all the time. That never has left my my soul. I still like pop music.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to a new episode of Set Listing Bruce, your podcast all about Bruce Springsteen, his music, and mostly his fans. I am your host, Jesse Jackson, and we continue in our couples week. That's right. I guess ladies should be first, but the way we work this out, Jennifer, is I talked to Dave first, and now I'm talking to you. So yes. When I put the episodes out, I guess I'll have to be in that order. But Jennifer Van Ebels, welcome to Set Listing Bruce.
Thank you for having me.
Tell us a little about yourself.
So my name's Jennifer Von Ebers, and I live in the Chicagoland area. I have my whole life, and David and I have just celebrated our 27th wedding anniversary, and we've been together for almost 29 years. So quite a long time. Fun fact is we grew up a mile from each other, never crossed paths until I was 25 and David was 31. So, and then once we met, then we had friends in common, obviously new people that were there. So it was kind of like a small world. And I always think, like, how many times did our paths cross growing up, and just never even knew it, kind of thing. So that's kind of fun.
If this was like a romantic sitcom, right? Like you would have seen each other, at the point of view of you like turning right, and if you had turned left, there had been him, yes. Or he did the same thing, right? Like, that's pretty
and actually,
funny.
Our meeting is the way we met was surrounded by music. We met actually at a bar, an Irish bar in Forest Park, and it called Duffy's. And it was the night before Thanksgiving, and I had no intentions of going out at all. It's like the area where we met, there's a bunch of bars on the same street, so it's a popular for young people to go out the night before Thanksgiving, yes. And meet up with people. And I just I wasn't going to have it. I was just like, I went to Blockbuster. I got a movie. I was like, got a frozen pizza. I was going to settle in for the night. And one of my girlfriends called and talked me into going out. And I was like, okay, fine. So I got up and got dressed, met at the bar and everything. And so back then, obviously, you could still put money in the jukebox yes. to play music and stuff like that. So I was going to put songs on the jukebox, and David and his friend were right next to it. And so David was there first. And so he was like wanted to pick out songs, and like his friend was like kind of give him a hard time. And so he didn't get to pick all the songs that he wanted. So I had my money. So I was like, well, we could pick songs together, kind of thing. So that's what we did. And then I just went back to my table with my friends. He stayed with his friends. And then eventually the night came over, and then we started talking. And then pretty much the rest is history from there, because then I met his family at that Christmas. We moved in the following June. We were married the following March. So it was just kind of like one of those things. Once that spark, it was kind of like that's it kind of thing. So that's a fun story. So we kind of met around music.
That's great. That's I love that story. It's so nice. Especially when right? Like it just I often think about that, when you are starting to when you're in your late 20s or early 30s, right? You kind of know what you want in a partner. And so
Definitely.
it's a little bit easier. As Linda, that's my wife, there isn't enough money in the world for her to go back doing that. She's like,
yes,
yeah, if something happens to you, bud, that's it. I'm just, I'm going to go live in a yurt somewhere. I always like to go to the beginning. So
Yes.
talk about growing up, Illinois. What kind of music did your family listen to? Were they very musical?
My dad liked big band stuff, so he liked all like the Glenn Miller, like big band stuff like that.
Sure.
And I was trying to think of like one of the questions, like what the beginning music that I listened to.
Yeah.
The Carpenters I loved, Barbara Streisand I loved. Um, just any kind of those, I could still probably sing the lyrics to any of those things. And then obviously being a teenager in the 80s, then my favorites and goes to Madonna, Cyndi Lauper, B-52s, U2 was just starting, Cyndi Lauper, Celine Dion. I'm still a fan. The funny thing is the difference musically between David and I've obviously gotten introduced to a lot of his music that he liked, but at heart, I'm still a pop girl and I love pop music even to this day. I could listen to that all the time. So even what kids are listening to, I never grew out of that. I will listen to it all the time. So that never has left my my soul. I still like pop music, which
Well,
is funny.
I will tell you, Jennifer, I grew up in the 70s. So I went to high school, graduated in 1977. So I grew up on Top 40 radio, Casey Kasem, American Top
Yep.
40. I was just on a podcast last night. I was a guest on one, and they were talking about, what other music do you love besides Bruce? And I said, well, I go back to a lot of music, but I said, one of my first musical loves was listening to, the radio and Barry Manilow and Boston
Yep.
and Neil Diamond and James Taylor and all these just,
Absolutely.
I loved all that pop music.
Yeah, I have never grown out of that. So that's still to this day, I will listen to that and still enjoy it. And fun fact is David and I also had two concerts that we were at the same time before we met. Duran Duran.
Yeah.
Neither of us wanted to go, but we were with friends that had talked us into going. And it was the only time they had performed in Chicago. And it was the same night. So it wasn't like there was they were performing for 3 nights kind of thing. So into our relationship, we were talking about, going to concerts and stuff. And I said, I'd gone to Duran Duran. He's like, I was at the Duran Duran concert. And I was like, you're kidding. So that was kind of crazy. And then another one was at Stevie Ray Vaughan, Eric Clapton was like a big thing in Poplar. I don't think it was Poplar Creek. I can't remember what it was, but we were also at that same, not the same night, but the same, right before Stevie Ray Vaughan passed away. So that was kind of a coincidence too, that we were both at that concert as well. I'd also seen Tom Petty several times. He had seen Tom Petty. We both saw Tom Petty actually the summer before he died. So that was another thing. We saw him at U of I. Literally like just a few months before he passed. So those things, and we did have in common. I saw the Police 3 times. He's seen Sting in concert. So those things are kind of like we did have those commonalities.
I know you said that you were not as big a Bruce fan as Dave, but you certainly have kind of tuned. So talk about, when did you first discover Bruce and what about him spoke to you, or it's just because Dave wore you down?
Definitely not before, because Dave wore me down. Obviously I knew him just because of the popularity of his music and things like that. But once I started listening to it in more depth and more of the albums and everything, and his songwriting is amazing. It's very sometimes emotional, kind of thing. It like just brings you to a different place kind of thing. I love his voice. A lot of people say like he doesn't have a great singing voice, but that's my favorite part, is it's like not perfect, but it's just kind of like he sings from the heart kind of thing. I also love about his band just in general is like Clarence. I love the saxophone. So that was always like when they have like all of the musicians on the stage, of just like all the singers and then just everybody, and just the joy that they have when they're performing. I always appreciate that, especially like bands that have been around for so long, you'd think that they would get tired of like playing the same things over and over again, or not have the same enthusiasm, or just kind of like going through the motion kind of thing. But it's like anytime I've seen him in any concert, either on TV or HBO or something like that, the passion and the just going for it, and just having, just like making it such a great experience for the people who go to see him. I always treasure that, because it's just like, that's rare to find. And it's just like, so it brings you joy, because like, obviously this is something that they can do over and over a million times. However many times people want to hear old music versus new music, whatever, they will put on a good show. So I've always appreciated bands like that you just really, obviously he sweats through a lot of shirts and
Yes, he
everything, and
does.
it goes crazy. The concerts are over 3 hours long. You get your money's
Yeah,
worth.
absolutely.
So things like that is like amazing.
My son always jokes that, hey, that shirt started out as white,
Light,
and now
yeah,
and now that it's this dark purple.
right.
Yeah, that is a really good thing. One of my favorite stories, shows how old I am. Linda Ronstadt was on the Tonight Show when Johnny Carson hosted it, and she was talking to Johnny about how she would get tired of singing Blue Bayou and a couple other songs. And she said, and then I recently went and saw Frank Sinatra. And she says, and I wanted to hear everything, there were all the things I wanted to hear. And then I realized, oh my goodness, that's what my audience feels.
Yeah.
She goes, so I never mind doing those songs anymore, because I know there's someone there that's seeing me for the first time and they want to hear those songs. So I
Absolutely.
always think that's a great story. It kind of to talk about that. Well, very nice. Bruce doesn't think that much of his voice. He says he doesn't think he's that good of a vocalist, but I agree with you. I think he has a great voice, and I love hearing him, whether he's doing his own stuff or when he does the covers. He does
Did you,
covers.
you've probably, of course, listened to the podcast with him and Barack Obama, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't get through all of it, but I got through several episodes, and same thing. It's just like, just down to earth, just normal person. And you just feel like you could walk in any room and he would, talk to you just like a normal person, not have like a very big celebrity status attached to him.
Yeah, he obviously doing the podcast, but even if I didn't do the podcast, if you had that list of celebrities you'd like to have at your dinner party, you would think he would be a good guest. He would have some good stories, and he and Patty would make for a fun couple to hang out with.
Oh gosh, yeah, 1,000% agree.
Yeah, absolutely. So anyway, as we were talking, you mentioned that you love to blog and Instagram about your food. And so talk to me a little bit about how this started and why you decided to your other passion,
Yes.
beside music, is food.
Well, it kind of started growing up. My dad was a professional chef. So when
Okay.
my sister and I have a twin sister and an older brother who's like 2 years older than us. But when my sister and I were in junior high, he went back to school. He was like a commercial artist, and very talented in that, right? But he also had a passion for cooking. And so he went to culinary school when we were in junior high and became a chef. Worked in some like hotels in their food department and things like that. But at home, I mean, it was just like extravagant, like he just really went to town making things and just making it super special. My mom also cooked, so it wasn't like my dad was the only person cooking. So I also learned some skills from my mom, but literally like the technical part of it of like, if you're making a meal, like what do you have to start first that's going to take longest so that everything like finishes at the same time.
Yeah.
When we had sleepovers, my friends just loved it because my dad would just make the biggest spread for the next day. Homemade hash browns, homemade danishes, quiches. I mean, it was just like insane. So he really like did it up, and especially around the holidays, enjoyed just creating just the most spectacular meals. So that's where I first got it. So and then when I was little, I also tried to enter the Pillsbury baking contest, and
Okay.
it always has to be an original recipe. Mine was always like some version of a chocolate chip cookie, which is kind of funny. That's not going to win $1 million, but I would
Right.
like just put a spin on it or something, some extra ingredients to think like I made this up. It's not something I saw, kind of thing. But I always like doing that. And then when, the internet came around, and then I started seeing other people doing food blogs,
Mhm.
then I was just like fascinated by that. I had no idea how to create a website, how to create a post, how to put a picture on. I had no knowledge of how to even get started. But I was like, I think I can figure this out. So in 2008 is when I started my first blog, and then I rebranded it with a different name. So Jen Cooks is what I have now, but my first blog was a different name. But I started that in 2008, and then my brother works for Apple, so he's like a big computer person, and so he set up my first WordPress site. So and then just kind of like I walked me through like the beginning stages of how to do that, and so doing that, then I got more confident of like, oh yes, I can do this. So then of course I had to like start with recipes that were my family favorites growing up and things that I like to do. My second reason was I was a completely picky person as far as like what foods I liked. I liked
Really?
very little. Yep. I liked very little fruits and vegetables.
Hmm.
I didn't like any foods touching the plate, everything like that. So I kind of like, um, every week would go to the store and buy a new vegetable that I hadn't tried to recreate, make it and things. And then it turns out I like tons of vegetables. So then that opened up a whole new world of like, holy cow, this is like amazing. Like I can make so many more things. Poor David, I like for the first part of our marriage, it was just like carrots.
Yeah.
Just like very little things. Like I didn't like asparagus, I didn't like broccoli, I didn't like
Yeah.
pepper. I mean, it was just onions, the whole gamut. So I'm sure he was probably like, thank God we finally have like some like real food. Just kidding. And so then that kind of like started really nice, and then I started getting like companies reaching out to me, asking me to try their products and things like that. So
Oh, how
that was kind of
fun.
fun. Yeah. So I did that for a while. And then of course, when Instagram started, I didn't hop on the Instagram wagon for a couple years because I was, again, just like, do I need another platform? I don't know, kind of thing. And so then once I started doing that, then I just had even more fun. I liked that more than the blogging part. Although it's kind of like you want to have it, you just have to
Well,
be everywhere. So now I'm
right.
like on Instagram, Pinterest, have my blog, Facebook, all that stuff. So and just learning like the whole social media thing has been fun. So I started from nothing. I have like 26,000 followers now. So that's kind of
Wow.
fun.
That is
And
amazing.
yeah, I mean, it's just kind of like gone gangbusters. And then um, just the people that I've met have just been amazing. Like most of them I have not met in real life,
Yeah.
but like I consider like my very best friends, because we talk all the time and stuff. And so I'm on Weight Watchers. So a lot of my recipes are healthier. I show the points for them for people who are on Weight Watchers, or just as an example of like how to navigate and try to lose weight where food is everywhere, kind of thing.
Yeah, it is.
It's hard.
It is.
um, and not treating it like a diet, but treating it more of like you can eat, you just can't have, like pre-Weight Watchers, it would be like I would have as many points as I get now for breakfast, and I'd also have that for lunch, and I would also have that for dinner, so it's just kind of like you can't do that every day, kind of thing.
Yeah, it
um
is. It is a struggle, one I fought my whole life. And
Same.
it is just there is that it is difficult too, and so I appreciate that. What kind of, like, I do this podcast because I truly love talking to people. I love finding not just Bruce Springsteen fans, but any people who are passionate about something. I love sharing with them. So what drives you to keep doing the Instagram and the blogging and in the food? What is your motivation?
I think because I've just never run out of ideas, kind of
Okay.
thing. I love the creativity of it. And then just being able to, figure out just different ways to make things. So I like large portions. I like abundance, but I also want to make it healthier so that you
Yeah.
don't feel like you're on a diet, because it's not a diet, kind of thing of just
Yeah.
incorporating things and not taking anything off the table. Obviously, you can hear things of like, oh, I lost 30 pounds in 30 days, but then it's like you read it and it's like you've got intermittent fasting or no carbs, and stuff like
Yeah.
that. That's just not really anything that is sustainable.
Hmm.
And that's not fun for me. So I don't
Yeah.
care if it's a slow weight loss, as long as I can enjoy it and have pizza and beer on the weekends. And that's my plan. And that seems to be working.
Well, good for you. What, so do, what makes a more popular blog, like a post or a posting? Have you figured out what your audience is going to be happier with? Because I will tell you, I have no thought. Like, I will post a new episode that I think, oh, they are going to love this, and I'll just, then there'll be another one that I thought was nice, but for some reason it clicked and I get tons more downloads.
Yeah. And I think it is funny that you say that, because there sometimes is no rhyme or reason. Like you could put in a huge effort for something and
Yeah.
spend hours in creating and doing the food plating and everything. And then I could take a snapshot of like something that was just like not even just like my lunch and post
Yeah.
it and then get 3 times as much, so it's just like, wait a second, then can I do that all the time? Kind of thing.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
So yeah, and you just don't really know. And of course, every platform changes their algorithm and changes how you're supposed to do it. Now with TikTok being so popular with videos, now Instagram wants to do videos, so now they want you to do reels, which was like a very a 60-second or less video to try to compete with that. So it's, and that part I like too, because it's just constantly you're challenged to learn new ways of social media. So
Yeah.
it just kind of like is one thing. And in doing my blog, doing my Instagram thing, and my day job, I work in an architecture firm. I was able to take over their Instagram for their thing, and I ran that for a couple of years. I was not in marketing. I was not in PR. I had no business doing that. I was just an executive assistant, but I loved Instagram, and I knew somebody wasn't doing it on a regular basis. And so I asked several times, I'm like, can I help with our channel? And then finally they
Mhm.
said yes. And so then it was kind of like having the confidence of doing it for food. Then I was able to do it for my architecture firm, which was
Yeah.
fun. Um, and then when 2 years ago, or maybe it was a year ago, the person who ran all the social media channels for the main accounts for my firm quit. And then they're like, Jennifer, can you jump in and help until we find somebody? So then all of a sudden I'm on the main Facebook, Twitter,
Yeah.
Instagram, and LinkedIn. And I was like, holy cow, this is weird. But then had I not done all that other stuff, it would not have given me the confidence to do that, or I would never have given the opportunity. So I always feel like starting my food blog has opened a million doors for me that I never would have been able to pass through had I not learned all that stuff.
So why did you and Dave decide to do a podcast?
Also, a challenge and doing something new. We're fans of podcasts, of course. And then so we decided it would be fun to do one as a couple. So we have our joint Instagram account called Jen and Dave. So we have over 150 episodes on Instagram for that. And that we started during the pandemic because obviously we're all stuck at home and everything. And it was just kind of like, we're just like, how about we just start our own channel, And so
Mm-hmm.
that's how that started. So that we talk about everything under the sun. For the podcast, we talk more about our marriage, and we have a mixed orientation marriage. So David is gay, I am straight, and we have kind of like wanted to use it as an example to people who are in that situation. There's many people who are to continue to have a successful marriage, and how to navigate that, and just kind of be like an advocate for anybody in the LGBTQ plus community. Our daughter is transgender. We have other transgender folks in our family. And so we are always listening and seeing what's going on out in the world and try to bring a bright light into, different types of situations that people go through, and then just kind of like talk about our lives kind of thing. So it was also another learning curve because we had never done it before. And so learning how to set it up, learning how to successfully record it. We got some new microphones and things like that. And then we made another blog for that. So we have a blog there, uploading it, and then obviously figuring out how to get it on Apple, on Spotify, and all that stuff, which I'm sure you are an expert at. But for us starting out, it was just kind of like, okay, how do we do this kind of thing? And we've successfully done that. So we have 10 episodes so far. And we try to post there once a week.
Yeah, the name of the podcast is In the Shadow of the Evening Tree.
Yes.
And which is obviously a Springsteen quote. What question do you guys get a lot that you are either, give me both sides, that you're always happy to answer, and then the one that you roll your eyes with, I can't believe we're getting asked this again?
Well, we actually, since we just started, we haven't really created like a ton of like a community of people asking questions and things like that. So we actually have not encountered any like repetitive things like that. So we're in the process now of marketing it, advertising it, and creating kind of like a dialogue and things like that. So people do know it's a safe place to ask questions and things like that. But we're an open book, and we just figure that, whatever comes our way, we're not afraid to answer any questions that come our way.
Okay, because I remember I was reading, God, this is years ago, and hang with me, I will get to the point. This will sound like I'm going on. It was a Douglas Adams book, the same guy who did, Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. It was, and somebody said, I'm a private detective. And someone said, I had a neighbor that had a trombone. And you're like, what? And they said that she went to, the question the guy would get with is, where do you practice your trombone at without destroying your neighbors? So I'm trying to think of the question that everyone asks a private detective, so I don't ask that. and so I always think of that because there is a lot of curiosity about marriages or couples or just society that different. We are, for the longest time, we were never vanilla as we seemed, but there was a lot of hiding, under that vanilla curtain. And so I'm curious, not just on the podcast, but just with the personalities, with your family and friends. It sounds like you've gotten a lot of acceptance.
Oh, 100%. Immediately, we did. And it was something that was just never, once David came out, then it was just part of our lives kind of thing. And so we obviously told our kids right away, and both sides of our family and everything. And so, but yeah, we obviously have grown up with families that have dealt with the LGBTQ plus community. So it wasn't ever a situation like, unfortunately, so many people today, like, your family disowns you, your parents don't talk to you anymore, and things like that, which is heartbreaking for us. And we always, like, if we see any young person, on social media or whatever, who is just like heartbroken because they told their family and then they don't have a family anymore, it's just like, we'll be your parents, just like you want to like bring them in, like, that's unacceptable, kind of thing. So and I also think that helped because when our daughter came to terms with her being transgender, then she didn't feel like, I can't tell my parents because I don't know what they're going to say, kind of thing. So I think that also helped in her being comfortable. And she just turned 26. She came out to us when she was 22. So it's been 4 years, but same thing, like, she knew that she would have, a loving family no matter what. And so we've always told our kids that, and that's just the way we've always been. So very lucky to be in that situation where it's just normal, kind of thing.
Well, yeah. So Linda and I got married. I met Linda in 1980. We got married in 1984. And so this June we will celebrate whatever that is in marriage. This is,
20 or yeah,
yeah,
36.
yeah. So it's been a while.
Yes, yes,
And there, you have so much history together as a couple and as friends. And so I get that this Bruce has that line, you'll need a good companion on this part of the ride, right? And that's,
yes,
what Linda has been to me, and I hope that I've been to her. So I think that's very cool because there are a lot of things that make up a marriage. I talk a lot that it's never 50-50. Sometimes it's 90-10, and sometimes it's 10-90, and you just hope that it isn't always 90-10 toward, that you're having to carry the whole burden all the
yes.
time, that it shifts enough that, you both are getting what you need out of the relationship.
Exactly. And so, and obviously, since we've been together for so long, when you were young and going through, having kids, buying houses,
Yeah.
his two brothers passed away, his mom and dad passed away, and my dad passed away. You
Mhm.
go through all those life changes, and there's like a sense of comfort having to ride through all that, your
Yeah.
whole life. And so we've always had that. And so it was just kind of like one of those things where, that's what we wanted to do, is just stay together. And
Yeah.
that's what we're doing.
Good for you guys.
I almost got teary-eyed I was talking about it.
Yeah, I know. Well, I'll tell you a funny story that there are things when you are proud as of a father or a parent, right? And I will tell you one of the moments where Linda and I looked at each other and said we did okay. Chris was going to school at college in East Texas, and he was dating a young woman who was Hispanic, and we had not met her. And she said, "Are your parents going to be okay, you dating someone who's Hispanic?" And Chris looked at her and said, "My parents would be okay if I brought you home and your name was Julio. They're going to be fine with you, Martha."
Exactly.
And I felt like, of course I would, but it felt very honest that he felt that secure, that he knew that no matter
It
who
wasn't going
he
to be an
brought home,
issue.
it wasn't going to be an issue.
Hmm.
No matter who he brought home saying, "This is who I love," that we would love them
And that's how
regardless.
it should be. And I just feel sorry for people who don't have that same kind of
Yeah.
family dynamic. So yeah, it's always a tragedy to me. Have
Yeah.
you seen, they have at the Pride Parade, they actually have parents that says, if you need a hug from a mom, if you need a hug from a dad, kind of thing,
Yeah.
where you can just stand there and then they just give hugs all day. And it's like, oh my gosh, like that's amazing.
Yeah. We ended up being in Atlanta a couple of years ago during Pride, and I had relatives that were at the time candidate Trump rally, and so they had sent photos of us. They'd sent photos to my wife and I of them "Make America Great," and
Oh
we
geez.
just so we had a couple of people and we told them, and they said, "Come here, honey," and they hugged Linda and I, this huge picture of us with all these people with their pride shirts and these things, and they're like, "Let's send them this photo," and
Right.
and it made us so happy. So
That's awesome.
yeah, it was just great. So, I've listened to a couple episodes. I've really enjoyed y'all's discussion. I think there's a sweetness and a candor to your
Thank
relationship.
you.
So I'm glad. What do you guys, what are plans for the podcast? What do you want to do going forward?
Well, I think we obviously want to continue posting regularly so that we do create an audience and things like that. And then just try to, like I said, bring a positive light to a different kind of marriage,
Yeah.
that is, it's not all, black and white, and it's not all doomsday, kind of thing. If that you come into that circumstance kind of thing. And so we do want to get to the point where we are getting the comments and the where we can kind of create that community and of just sharing a positive light for other people who may be going through the same thing, or who maybe haven't come out yet and like are worried about like what happens in my marriage if this happens, kind of
Yeah.
thing. To know that it doesn't just automatically mean like that's it, kind of thing.
Yeah, that's great. That's really good. So let's go back a little bit. We are all hoping that Bruce is going to tour.
Oh my gosh, that would be so amazing.
Yes. Are there songs, or well, let's talk about, is there songs, not just necessarily from Bruce, but from other bands, or songs or albums that mean a lot to you, Jennifer, that you go to bring comfort, to help joy, to, either when you're needing energy to, go run errands, or you just need something to brighten your day?
Well, one of the bands that David introduced me to, that we saw in person at the very beginning of our relationship, was the Mavericks. I don't know if you're familiar with them.
I do.
And so that has become like one of our favorite bands to go to. We've seen them many times. For the same reason as Bruce. They've been together for decades, and the joy and the passion that they bring. And especially during COVID, the lead singer, Raul Malo, was just doing live from his living room, like mini concerts that you could it would be like, I'm going live at 5:00. And then we'd log on, if we could, and listen to him play a few songs and things like that. We actually saw him in a solo without the band, but just himself, right before the pandemic. It was like March 7th, it was like right when we thought like something's happening, and then of course, obviously soon after, everything kind of shut down. So, and the place that we saw him was a small venue, and kind of like just a few tables and mostly standing room only kind of thing. But we just happened to be in the back with the door where he actually came out to come on stage. And so of course I had to like touch his back. I was like, hey, how's it going? And Dave's like, of course you did. And then he had like a little intermission. So he came back out, and people were clapping and everything. And I was like, high five, and then stuff like that. So I do enjoy that. And then also another band that person that David introduced me, which I love, is Keb Mo. We've seen him several times. His music is amazing. I like some of his softer stuff that's just very good. Garland Jeffries is another person that has become personal friends. Him and his wife are now personal friends of ours now, which has been nice. And we've seen him many times. And David actually got to interview him for a blog post that he was writing for. And it's just been amazing that we've been able to, at least for that person, just become close friends with somebody who's like super famous like that and has been in the music industry for so long. And then of course I also have to turn to when I had my Spotify playlist, what my most songs listened to was for 2021, it was still Celine Dion was number one. So that also I go back to. Pink was the other one, and Justin Bieber.
Nothing wrong with that. You said you were a pop girl always, so good for you.
Yes.
That is nothing wrong with that. Are there any, when Bruce tours again, are there any songs you really are hoping to hear him perform live when you guys get to go see him?
Well, anything off the river, I think, is meaningful to me, because I actually got a signed autographed album for David. That was like even like very early on in our relationship, because I knew he would like that. It was like going online to try to find and the certified autographed thing. So that would be good. I like the song "I'll See You in My Dreams" is one of my favorites.
Sure.
And just pretty much any and also the ones that I have, like the big the saxophone, like that anything like that. We are actually lucky to see Clarence Thomas's nephew. Oh
Jay
my gosh, I'm
Clemens.
blank.
Yes, Jay
Jake.
Clemens.
Jake.
Jake.
So we saw
Yeah.
him, and we have pictures of him because we saw him at Old Town Folk Music, where Dave and I took guitar lessons.
Oh,
So
how
a
fun.
very small venue. So we got to meet him backstage, which was amazing. Um, so yeah, it's just if he comes, we've got all alerts on that we
Yes,
will be
exactly.
notified. So that it's just kind of
Absolutely.
like, and we would fly anywhere, to see him, kind of thing. David's gotten to see him in concert. I have not, so it's something
Okay.
that's definitely on our list to do.
Yes. And um, if I should fall behind, would kind of bring you to
Yes,
tears, right? That
definitely,
would make you sure.
100%.
Absolutely. Yeah. Good. So Jennifer, any final thoughts? Is there something I should have asked you that I haven't?
I don't think so. We got through a lot of stuff. If anybody listening likes to any recipes, they're welcome to look at my Instagram. It's at Jen Cooks, and it's with two N's. And then my blog is jen-cooks.com. So
Okay.
I post recipes all the time on there. So they're more than welcome to follow me on Instagram and see what I'm doing. And then I also am a big fan of the stories, on Instagram. So I put something on stories pretty much every day, which is another great way to meet people. They really get to know you behind the scenes of, just the
Good.
static posts. They can see your personality and, how what I'm doing throughout the day. And I get tons of messages and followers, and it's just been amazing.
I will, if you'll send me the links, email me,
Yes,
send me links, I'll include them in the show notes. Very nice.
perfect.
This has been so much fun, but I
I
gotta
know, I appreciate.
no, this is a lot of fun. I loved getting to talk to both of you separately, and we may have to do this where they're all three of us together and tell
That would
stories.
be, we would totally do that.
Yes. All right. So let's end with the Mary question. So if you are a fan of Jen Cooks and you're listening to this podcast because you want to know more about the amazing Jennifer, um, I end every episode with the Mary question. And where that came from is Jay Armstrong, who is an honors English teacher, recently retired, who would spend, when he was teaching, he would spend 2 days breaking apart Thunder Road for his honors English class. The students would look at all the lyrics, they would talk about the imagery Bruce uses, they would talk about the themes of the song. And at the end of the 2 days, Jay would ask his class, does Mary get in the car? So, Jen, that is your question. Does Mary get in the car at the end of Thunder Road?
I think she does.
Okay.
Only because I feel like the opportunity to try something new and go on the road and get away from her hometown and try something new, take a chance on this person, and continue on. That's my thoughts. I think that she definitely got in the car.
Very nice. Good job. All right, Jen, continued success in your
Thank
Instagram and
you.
blog and your podcast. I'm so glad that I've got to meet you and Dave. Y'all are wonderful people, and
Thanks so
I
much.
feel honored that we're visiting. Listeners, you go get vaccinated, go get boosted. Let's all be kind to each other because that's how we're going to get through this. Thank you, Jennifer.
Definitely.
Thank you,
Thank
listeners.
you.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Bruce Springsteen Live provides fans with an intimate look into Springsteen's creative process. The Bruce Springsteen Live exhibit opens at the Woody Guthrie Center on Saturday, April 16th, running through Sunday, September 25th. The exhibit will feature iconic artifacts, live performance footage, instruments, stage costumes, exclusive interviews, concert posters, and photography, as well as unique interactive displays to immerse fans in Bruce Springsteen and the band's creative process. More information can be found at woodyguthrieCenter.org. Please let them know that Set Listing Bruce sent you there, and I'll see you in Tulsa. I want and need your feedback. You can reach me multiple ways to tell me what you like or don't like about the show. You can reach out to give me guest suggestions or maybe to join me on the podcast yourself. We're on Twitter at SetListingBruce or at Jesse Jackson DFW. I have an Instagram, setlistingbruce, or Jesse Jackson DFW. Our Facebook page, facebook.com/setlistingbruce. Go to patreon.com/setlistingbruce to find out how you can support the show, and we have several tiers of support. Please go to your favorite podcast player and hit subscribe. And tell a friend about the podcast because that is the way we're going to grow. If you're not tired of hearing me speak, you can hear me on Next Stop Everywhere, the Doctor Who podcast, where Charles Skaggs and I talk all things Doctor Who. The How Many podcast, where me and my friends Gary, Scott, Bob, and Jr. talk pop culture. And finally, my newest podcast, The Last Best Hope for Conversation, a Babylon 5 podcast, where Karen, Lou, and I are going through the TV show Babylon 5 one episode at a time. I am always looking for guests, so please reach out to me, setlustingbruce@gmail.com.
You just heard the fun talking, hard rocking, music loving, album ranking, fan thinking, joy spreading, lyric reading, story sharing podcast that is the one, the only Set Listing Bruce. The theme for Set Listing Bruce was written by David Rosen, used by permission.